Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Sonia, and I'm going to be again your MC tonight. It's really great to spend the Friday evening here together with you, and it's really great to see you, and thank you so much that you've made it. If you have been participating offline until now, welcome to you as well. It's really nice to see you. So the previous times we have been focusing on roots and a tree with deep roots, and we've talked about God and two parents. And today we're going to be continuing with a slightly different topic on spiritual growth and personal development. So our schedule tonight is that we're going to be sharing some homework, and we'll be hearing from different participants from their opinions and their experience about what they have been doing. We're also going to be having two amazing talks from Bogdan, Pammer and Kaeleigh Moffit from America. And we're going to be having some exercise as well in between, and questions and answers and team meetings as every evening. So welcome again, and I'm just going to start with a prayer before we go into the program. Heavenly Parent, good evening. It's now today again Friday, and we're starting the third session of the Foundations course, and we're so happy that every single brother and sister who is here tonight has been able to make it. And we pray, Heavenly Parent, that you can guide each one of us wherever we may be in our life, and we might all have different situations and different needs in our life of faith, and you know us and you know what we need, and you also really seek to be close to us, and you want to have a relationship with us. So we pray that our presence here can be a condition that you can use to come towards us as well, and make it a bit easier for us also to experience you and to understand your heart. And we pray that we can also learn from our brothers and sisters tonight through the different talks and through the team sharings. We pray that you can speak through others as well, so that we can maybe understand something new, or come closer to each other and have a good experience, that that we can feel that you're always guiding us in our lives. Thank you, Heavenly Parent, and we pray that you can bless this session and bless all of our brothers and sisters here, and also those who couldn't come tonight and who are doing this offline. And we pray for all of our families as well. This I pray in my name, Sonia Reed, blessed in her family. Aju. All right, so before I'm going to start talking too much, we're going to go into homework sharing. So we had deadline today for the homework, and we're going to be hearing from 3 different participants about their experience. So first, I'd like to invite up Tim Berger from Team 4 to share.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much. Actually, I first would like to talk about the 3 letters to Heavenly Parents or to God. And I already kind of shared that in my team on Tuesday. And I felt very much connected to like journaling in the past, what I've done quite frequently. And it was very interesting that this time it was not kind of like with journaling when you're kind of only talking to yourself or writing for yourself. It was more to another person or to other people, I guess. And I found that I was more describing my days or the thoughts that I was having more in more detail, trying to let the other person more understand of really what is going on inside my head and what I've experienced throughout my day, which I found very interesting. And on the concept map that we had to create, it's very much, a lot of things are connecting there. Yeah, it's of course kind of like a mind map, and it's going all over the place, which I found also very interesting. And then kind of like things that are branching off of family, parents, then also then coming back together, connecting, kind of like taking responsibility, and parents, as parents, you of course get children at one point, and you also take responsibility over your own children, which was also very interesting. And yeah, today in the morning after the 100K session I joined, I wrote the 1 letter to Mother. And interestingly, on Tuesday, when Dr. Michael Balcom, he was again suggesting to us that we should write that letter. Even before the homework was announced, I was like, yeah, I think right now is a really good point where I should do that. And then I heard afterwards, also from Eric, kind of as a spoiler, because he was in our breakout session, that's actually going to be the homework, and I was very happy about that, and even motivated even more to do that. And yeah, I was very much thinking about it beforehand, what I should write, and I basically just really ended up, actually, I think very often saying sorry for some reason, but also was really easy in some other ways as well. I was really trying to imagine how I would write a letter to my own mother, which I only have done once in my life before. That was also part of a workshop, and that was a very heart-touching thing for me. And yeah, so was this as well. Yeah, it was a very nice experience, and I also would like to say thank you for that as well. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing your experience. Okay, next we're going to have up Maya Sasaki to share about her experience.
Hello. Well, I don't really know what to share about, but I can start by saying that when I saw what the homework was last time, and also, well, the last 2 times, then I was very grateful for this opportunity to kind of be forced to do this, because it's always things that I think about and I say, oh well, I want to do it, I want to write to God, or I want to write to True Mother, or stuff like that, but then I never do it because there's no one to hold me accountable for that. So having this homework and then this deadline, I said, well, that's great for me. So I was busy this week, but somehow I did it. Yeah, so I think it's great I joined just for that. And yeah, well, actually, somehow the topic of today, I didn't know about it, but then the topic of the day of spiritual growth and personal development is really related to what I wrote in my letter for God, because well, I wrote many questions in the first letter, so kind of, I don't know if confronting is the right word, but just many questions that I have, and I never dared to ask, kind of. So, but then, I was sharing with him how I feel about my personal development and spiritual growth, and all the efforts I try to put into growing spiritually and growing my relationship with him. So it's kind of funny because I tell myself, well, he already knows how much effort you put, or so he already knows everything. But still, I don't know, I felt like if I share how hard it is for me, and just if I share everything, then maybe he will know better and something will change, maybe in a bigger aspect. So yeah, I just wrote about these kind of things in the first letter. And in my concept map, I kind of wrote just short things, short words, not really quotes or what else was it? Places, or I don't know, something abstract. I really wrote things I feel like I feel when I try to work, like on my prayers or something like that. And also every time, I feel grateful, then I try to connect it to God. So like to remember that actually it comes from God or something. So yeah, just it was very good homework, I think, to sum it up.
Thank you so much, Maya, for sharing that as well. Okay, so now we're going to have one more, and one more person sharing about their homework, and that is Andy Egger from Team 3.
Yeah, right. Hi, everyone. Yeah, for me, this has already been a bit of a journey. Until now, I was not even sure if I should join this course or not, because there's so much to do and I was so occupied with work and everything. So yeah, but in the end I felt, no, there are some things I need to figure out. So it's good to join. And surprisingly, I did find the time until now for all the sessions, which is, I think it's great. And something is, I already feel something is changing. Yeah. Yeah. And also, yeah, I have to say that my spiritual life was really non-existent, because, yeah. So that's why I thought about, okay, how I'm going to do the exercises. Yeah, but actually then when I began, things started turning out quite nice. Yeah, so I did the concept map, and yeah, I don't know. At first came just some things like I don't know, hard to understand, like far away, distant relationship with God. So I don't even know what to say. So, but as I progressed, then yeah, I came more into yeah, what is behind, or how we can understand God, like yeah, all these kinds of things like empathy, healing, yeah, endless forgiving and stuff like that. So it's I really, yeah, I somehow I started to relate to it. Yeah, and also what stuck with me is that I mean, if he's God, then he will probably never change, right? So we can trust on it. So yeah, it was one, I don't know, kind of realization I had. Yeah, and I also wrote the letters to God, and yeah, I really didn't know how it will turn out. And as I think Maya said, I had a lot of questions in the beginning, like, dear God, who are you? Where are you? I cannot feel you. Like, why is it so hard to know that you even exist? So, and I had a lot of questions and a lot of, yeah, just bugging me how I could relate. So, and then on this second letter, I, yeah, I was somehow more open, like, I could, yeah, just ask. I was beginning with, thank you for listening. Are you listening? And what is our purpose? How we should lead our lives, and so on. And in the end, because I asked all these questions, and then one word came very strongly to me, and this was to serve, right? How we should support you. What is the secret? Like, to serve. Okay. And this kind of stuck with me, because I think that's really some kind of secret where we can get to know God more. And finally, yeah, the third letter was not really a letter anymore. It was just asked, like, what can we actually do? And just some things came into my mind, like not doing anything, but being, like, be love, be hope, be joy, forgiveness, compassion, and so on. So it's not about what we, not so much what we say or do, but what we are. So, and yeah.
Thanks, Andy, for your intervention. And thanks to all of three of you for sharing your experiences. And yeah, it's not necessarily easy to share about something very personal. So thank you so much for talking about your experience, and perhaps other people also could relate to it. Okay, so next we're going to come to our, I was going to say homework, but it's not yet. It's our first talk. And first of all, just want to remind you also that, again, there's questions and answers open. So if you open your chat and you direct your questions or comments to the questions and comments creative name, then please, yeah, pop those in and feel free to ask or to comment about anything during either of these talks. Okay, so first we're going to welcome up Bogdan Pammer, who is also really behind also this whole program and juggling with a lot of things, and together with his wife Yoshiko, they have been putting a lot of heart and investment into it. So yeah, please welcome up Bogdan.
Hi, good evening everyone. Great to see you. Thank you, Maya, thank you, Tim, and thank you, Andy, for sharing what you've shared and having this experience. I think I shared already before that letters to God saved my spiritual life at a certain point. And yeah, so tonight our topic is a life of faith and a life of substance. And basically Andy already told the main points, so we can go home or we stay and try to immerse ourselves a bit more and a bit deeper into these topics. I myself, just short check-in, I just came into the door 10 minutes ago or something like that, and yeah, at the moment very much also in a time of dedication and service, and I think really, thank you, Andy, these are key words. So let me share the screen as we move now forward. So our topic today is a life of faith and a life of substance, and we'll be sharing about what this key principle that true parents taught us about how we can grow spiritually and grow in faith and in substance, and what does it mean to grow in substance is actually something quite interesting. So yeah, we'll dive deeper into this tonight, and I would like to share or start with an observation I recently had, and also it's connected to two books that I read. I think we all, especially as young people, we have a hunger to live an extraordinary life. Can you agree with that? So this sort of idea to scale the highest mountain, to go to the deepest part of the sea. And if you read about True Father's life and his youth, he certainly also had this original human desire to live a very extraordinary life. And I actually recently just read two books that reflected on this issue from two very different perspectives. One of them was actually Max Frisch, Antwort aus der Stille. It was, anyway, he's a Swiss author. And he wrote this book at 25, describing a 31-year-old going a most dangerous mountain path just before getting married. And he wants to do something that no one has ever done before he gets married, and he struggles. And yeah, anyway, it's a quite extraordinary book. And the other one is Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, which is, I think some of you have heard. I guess not many have read, and I do really recommend it. And actually in the introduction, he writes, actually my observation of the concentration camp, what I observed in others, in myself, I didn't want to publish this under my name because it was somehow too private. I wanted to publish it anonymously. And then interestingly, it's this book that made him really famous eventually, and looks at this purpose of life from a quite different from a different angle. It's not a young person bringing himself into an extreme situation, but the extreme situation coming upon this young man and how he finds meaning or life in there. So what does this have to do with spiritual growth, with personal development, and this our topic today? And I think the point is, what is it that matters in the end? What matters in the end when we are faced with death, when we are faced in the concentration camp, when we are faced with this emptiness that we try to rid ourselves by climbing the most dangerous mountain path no one has ever climbed. So we're looking for something, and I think us as spiritual leaders, or as we grow and try to grow into becoming spiritual leaders, we are trying to answer this question for ourselves, but also for other people. And I already gave the answer here. I think what matters in the end is a spiritually healthy life. And that's in a sense a life that leaves behind a legacy of love. I just came back from and I think this is the standard True Father himself said, and it's a very nice chapter in Father's autobiography, leaving behind a legacy of love. But I think it's also a measure of spiritual health and whether we actually grow, whether we actually develop. And yeah, I was just now abroad for a week, working on some programs in the Balkans region. And I got this picture from Yoshiko. And yeah, anyway, it's just a nice picture of my children. I just wanted to share it with you. I'm becoming a real parent. I can't stop showing pictures of his children. Yeah, but I think it's connected. And yeah, so Jesus has an answer to this question about what matters most, right? And it's this question that Viktor Frankl and also Max Frisch abroad explored in their writings. And Jesus, our dear elder brother Jesus, gave a very clear and meaningful answer to that when he said, "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where moth and rust do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." And as we explore this topic of foundation of faith, foundation of substance, the name of our course is also Foundations. What a nice coincidence. We'll see that it's really about creating that storage of what really matters and what is really meaningful, and creating a place where also our heart can rest, and where eventually, as we'll see, God can rest in our heart. And you're all familiar with these quotes, of course, but it's powerful and valuable to go through them again. And Matthew wrote about Jesus, "Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law?" Jesus replied, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment, and the second one is like this: love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and all the prophets hang on these two commandments." And that's, in a sense, the greatest commandment that tells us how we can create that storage, that store of what is really valuable. And yeah, we can also, of course, read explanation in the Divine Principle about this. And here we can read from, in the exposition of the Divine Principle about foundation of faith and foundation of substance. I'm sharing now with you basically the scripture, the foundation of that, before moving on to sharing my own experiences and how I could see and how I experienced the principle of
laying a foundation of faith, working in my life with some very personal stories that are dear to me. For Adam, in the principle of creation, the principle exposition of the divine principle writes, for Adam to realize the purpose of creation, he was supposed to fulfill two conditions. First, Adam, and actually this is also true for Eve. So I saw some sisters already leaning back here. And yeah, this is also addressing you. Should have established the foundation of faith. The person to lay this foundation was Adam himself. The condition to establish this foundation was to keep strictly to God's commandment, not to eat of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And as we'll see, the foundation of faith, how it is practiced in our unificationist tradition, how we learned it in center life, on mission programs and so on, how our elders were teaching it to us, and we teach it to the people we care of, is exactly also this point about saying that we're going to do something for God and then actually doing it, keeping to the commandment, so that what we say we're going to do and that what we're going to do is the same, is coherent. And by doing that, we develop faith not only in God, but also faith in ourselves, because we realize and see, if I say I'm going to wake up at 6 a.m. in the morning and start the day by dedicating it to God, then I can see, wow, I actually do it. I can actually do it. And I'm actually realizing it. The second condition which Adam was supposed to fulfill in order to realize the purpose of creation was to establish the foundation of substance. And our dear sister Kaeleigh will hear more from her about that. And the divine principle writes, after Adam established an unshakable foundation of faith, he was then to become one with God. That's interesting, right? It's the foundation of substance that makes us one with God. It's not faith alone. Thereby establishing the foundation of substance. This means he would have to become perfect incarnation of the word, with a perfect character, fulfilling God's first blessing. And we'll see that actually in order to grow in our character, actually it's our relationship to others that's key. To become a person of substance is to become a person of character. And character grows and develops in our relationship. And we can look forward to some amazing testimonies about that. So that's the last slide about the divine principle. There we can see that actually foundation of faith and the purpose of foundation of faith and foundation of substance is turned around the fourfold natures that are very real in our own lives. And if you learn as a person to confront the fallen natures in yourselves, you become incredibly bright and shining and a lighthouse for others. What are the fourfold natures? It's characteristics of the fallen nature, to use the exact, the precise term that is used in the divine principle. And it's not seeing from God's viewpoint, others or myself, leaving one's proper position, the reversal of dominion and multiplying evil. I assume you're all familiar with that. So in the YSP context, we kind of translated these fourfold natures into something more tangible and useful, or usable, maybe is the right term. So not seeing from God's viewpoint means we're taking our self-centered viewpoint. Leaving one's proper position means we're abandoning responsibility and act irresponsibly. Reversal of dominion means when we start using others for our own needs. And if we're totally honest, each one of us has been a little manipulative already in his or her life, to trying to convince someone to pity you, or things like that. And the last one is multiplying evil. It's justifying our own wrongdoings and blaming others for them. And so in a way, there's also, of course, and that's the way we are going. The way back is to admit our wrongdoings, follow guidance, even when it's hard, from our elders, act responsibly, even when it's hard. Oh, there's one I too much there. And learn to love what God loves ultimately. So in this course, yeah, that's what this life of faith and life of substance is all about, and what God and true parents are inviting us to go in order, and that's what really the divine principle says, right? In order actually to be able to receive the Messiah. That means in order to be able to receive grace, receive love, receive the joy and the presence of God through the Messiah and through God directly. So there is this process is actually also laid out in, and so there's one more thing I'd like to share with you, kind of from the background that hopefully will also help you to explain it to others. And that actually there's 5 commandments that exactly deal with this in our life of faith. You have heard of the 10 commandments, obviously, and the first 5 commandments actually exactly deal with the foundation of faith, deal with making offering and working on that relationship with God, and with the vertical dimension. And there's 5 more that deal with the horizontal. And the first one is, I'm the Lord your God, you shall have no other gods before me. What does this mean in my own life? Is actually to always put God first in my life and doing the best to have no other God. Nothing should be more important. And of course, putting God first does not mean necessarily putting family first or mission first or work first or all of these things first. Actually, putting God first can mean all of these things. Sometimes putting God first means taking care of my family. Sometimes putting God first means I need to put my mission first. But this is really to not strive for anything else but God, and to give God the most important part of my life. And that means also the most important part of my day, right? The morning belongs to God. The evening belongs to God, because God is first. Then is my relationship to my wife, my relationship to my children, through which I then also experience God, obviously, and go even deeper. The second one is, you shall not make yourself an idol. That's this point about making our relationship to God vivid and lively and alive, not getting stuck in our own concepts about God or in other people's concept about God. So that was also part actually of this concept map exercise, to write the concepts we have about God down and to see how to move beyond them. You shall not misuse the name of the Lord. That's once, and I certainly face this challenge once we become ardent in spiritual life and start offering a lot of conditions, feel this connection of God, that we don't use this newfound connection to God to put others down. That's a danger, and the Bible says we shouldn't do it, right? If we misuse the name of the Lord, in one interpretation it can mean just cursing or something like that, but ultimately I think it's mean, if I use a Bible quote, if I use my understanding of God, if I use Father said so or something like this to put someone else down. Does this make sense? To put someone else down, to win an argument by pointing towards God. Remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. Shouldn't think that we are so important that we need to work all 7 days a week. God is most important, and we can rest one day. And I'm not preaching this to myself because I'm not totally living up to it at the moment, but next week will again be better. And the 5th one is, honor your father and your mother so that you may live long in the lands that the Lord your God is giving you. And it's obviously this aspect of Hyojang, of directly with our parents, connecting to our parents and attending and respecting and honoring them. And through that, I find that connection of God. There's 5 more commandments where Kaeleigh will cover that part. She will tell us how not to murder anyone and stay out of prison. Yeah. So with this, I would like, now to look to share with you. Oh, did I end? No, I didn't end the screen sharing here. It's not how this is going. And my experience, really, especially over the last few months, was I love for a long, or let's start there. I love at the moment, bows is really the #1 condition I love doing, and it's really giving me a lot of strength. There was a time where I felt, oh, I'm a bit too old for that, and then I realized, okay, actually, I wanna start doing bows again. Use that as a condition. Conditions are in our tradition, right? A key tool of making that space it's about transforming the energy around us so that we can be our true self. We can start becoming our true self and learn how to be our true self in relating and connecting to others. And with this transformation to do our conditions joyfully is, I feel at the moment, really a profound present that I could experience. At the moment is really when I get in front of True Parents' picture and start doing vows and come into this holy place and this holy presence with our True Parents and God. I feel like I do the first vow and I feel like, oh man, 39 more or 79 more or 119 more, whatever it is on that day. And doing the second, the third, and then slowly the heart rises, and I try to move myself into that energy, into that spirit, to say, okay, I only have so and so much time left, only so and so much part of my condition left to really be there and really be present by God. One of True Father's verse that moved me, actually the deepest, was once that he shared, dear God, if I could, I would just love to climb up on Mount Everest, and up there on Mount Everest, dig deeper down, so deep, not just only to sea level, but so deep that it's deeper than the deepest trenches in the ocean. And down there, I will prepare a place where I can offer devotion and offer conditions to you. And so working on this foundation of faith through the life of conditions that we set, the life of conditions that we report to our central figures, and then promise to ourselves, promise to God, also through our central figure, and then doing these conditions in this process. My experience is, if we do it attentively and consciously, we really create an environment around us where we are transforming the spiritual atmosphere around us. We give our soul, our heart space to breathe. And at different stages of my life, this was and in that moment, God can speak to us. And then we have this clarity where we can start to put it into action in our relationship, which is obviously the next step. I recently, and it's, believe me, when you're in this process, my experience is that we become more sensitive towards really the spiritual energy that is around us, to how close, how present God is, and the power that we have if we offer something to God, create that space, and keep to it over a promised period of time. Every good condition has a beginning and an end, based on a certain numbers. And really, my life done at times were reading one and the same speech over and over again, and really getting into the speech. At one point, when we prepared for True Mother's Cranes Club in Vienna, it was True Mother speeches every day. Before that, it was the peace messages every time. every day, and you could see actually one of my most precious things I own is that copy of True Father's speech from the peace messages that I used for this reading 120 times condition. I feel it's something really precious, because a document of my struggle with who true parents are and ultimately victory. So, but there were times where running was the thing. I go out, I put the trainers on, I run and pray and shout. So there is really, I think, and God will tell you what the right thing for you to offer at this point to make this next step and create this holy atmosphere where God can be present around you. How you can create this. I think even dancing is one possibility. I have experiences with that. So, yeah, the point really there is that if we become people who I'm seeing the time. I'm closing off, Sonia, and the point I'm making here is that if we make it part of our lives to offer these conditions, if it's something that really comes out of our desire to connect to God, if we report it and share it clearly, accountably with our central figures, make it clear for ourselves. We have a lot of tools and a lot of powers to transform our immediate environment so that God can dwell and rest there. And God can start to be present, and then through transform our relationships. And if we transform our relationship, God can dwell and rest in our lives. So we're coming to a break now. Before we'll hear from Kaeleigh, and in this break we'll hear some music, if I'm not mistaken, right? We'll have some music in the background. No music in the background, but we can answer a Mentimeter question on the one hand, and the second thing that we can do is that we clean our desk a bit around. So there's one thing in your room, anyway, if you can see my background, there's a lot I could do, but there is one thing you can do to clear your environment a bit, make it a bit clearer, a bit nicer, before we do the next step and then receive the next talk. Thank you, everyone. Back to you, Sonia.
Okay, so we're taking 2 minutes now, just to clear up, as Bogdan was saying, to clear up our desks, as a condition to make a kind of clean environment. So let's go and take 2 minutes and be back by 2 minutes, because I can't call all of you to come back. So be sure to be back in 2 minutes. All right, I hope that was an interesting experience, and thanks, Bogdan, for your talk. Yeah, I really have also come to realize or to experience how conditions are actually really amazing. It's a very something which is very much out there in our movement, but which we sometimes don't necessarily appreciate actually how powerful they can be. So yeah, thanks for doing that. Okay, so next, before the start of the next talk, please take out your phones, and we're going to want to hear from you next. So we're going to be doing another Mentimeter poll. So take out your phones and type in the web address, which you will see on the screen in a minute. Okay, so the first question is, actually, can we share the screen, Vicky? Thanks. So we can see everybody's answers. So the first question is, as you can already see, logged in, is to describe your life of faith. So if you haven't accessed the website yet, you see on the top of the screen, go to www.menti.com and use the code that you see on the screen. So type on your phone or use the link that's in the chat and write www.menti.com and use the code. Yeah, or use the comment, the link in the chat. Okay, so how would you describe your life of faith? Okay, so we have a lot of different answers. The answers are inconsistent with each other, and also that is one of the main one. Yeah, inconsistency is quite, I'm sure, yeah, we have the ups and downs, so that's for sure one of the very key characteristics for sure for everyone. And fluctuating, very similar to inconsistent, also valuable. People find solace in it. We have evolving, progressing, complicated, fundamental, unstable. So it's actually interesting. A lot of people are talking about how it keeps changing. It's not always the same, and sometimes that can be, yeah, sometimes up, sometimes down. Okay, that's interesting. So quite similar experiences, but also people find it very fundamental to their life and valuable. Okay, great. Let's go to the next question. How do you work on your life of faith? So what are some of the favorite things that you might do in your life of faith? So Bogdan mentioned not being in prison. Are there any other achievements in your life of faith that you have? Reading Hondoke as a big text there. Anything you like to do that connects you to your life of faith? Conditions. Attending foundations is definitely something that is a great step in the life of faith. Anything in the life of faith is somehow effort, isn't it? All of these things that have been mentioned here are related to doing something and being active. Prayer and also conversations with other people seems to be quite popular. So learning from others, talking more, serving, helping others in relationships, meditation as well, principled lifestyle, asking questions, reflecting. So we have here some practices that we do by ourselves and also which are more relational, like serving, helping others, which are definitely also an important part of the life of faith. Okay, great. Well, thanks everyone for sharing your views. It's interesting to hear how people see, and sometimes even things that we take for granted are kind of put under question when you go through a lecture series or a seminar like this. Some concepts you might have been familiar with since you're very young, but actually when we start to look at them more, yeah, it's kind of interesting to see what different people say about them. All right, so next we're going to be moving on to our next program item, and we're going to be hearing a second talk from Kaeleigh Moffit, who is the Director of Government Relationship for UPF USA. So we look forward to hearing from Kaeleigh from the other side of the pond. And if you have any questions or comments, again, please direct them to the questions and comments chat. And yeah, we'll have both speakers answer those questions at the end. So let's welcome up Kaeleigh.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. I know most of you don't know me, but I'm happy to see some of your faces, and hope you can handle some very American energy. We do things a little differently, I think. But I'm very excited to be able to share with you on this particular topic. Thank you, Bogdan, for inviting me, and thank you to everybody for allowing me to join this. I think it's really great everybody's participating in this leadership training course. I think that's having consistent investment is the best thing we can do in our lives of faith. So I'm really grateful and curious about this kind of style of programming. So yeah, I have prepared a little bit of a talk on foundation of substance, and it's a tricky topic because when you look at providential history, this has been the area where most of the failures have occurred, right? If you can think from the very beginning, you know, Cain killed Abel. That's a pretty famous one, right? And why is that? I think when we talk about providential history, we have to be very careful not to think about it so black and white. And that's one thing I kind of struggle with the way we teach divine principle, is that it's basically checks and X's, like yes, foundation of faith, and no, foundation of substance. Okay, move on to the next central figure. But it's actually so much more complicated than that, especially when we're talking about the foundation of substance, which has a lot to do with relationships, right? There is unity, there is conditions that need to be made, but in the end, it all comes down to relationships. And I was taking some time to reflect on the last few years of my foundations of substances and things that I've learned along the way. And I thought perhaps some of the best ways to share about this topic is to share some of my successes and some of my still in progresses in really making unity in this area and bringing success in this area of my life. So I'm gonna share my screen, 1 second. Okay, so I'm talking about bringing substance to the foundation of substance, and just wanted to give you a picture of this is what my normal life is like. I have 3 kids and a great husband who hopefully will not interrupt this talk, fingers crossed. So actually, when I was preparing for this, I made sure to read the section on divine principle, which talks about foundation of faith and substance. And there's particular stories that stand out to me that I think are very relevant for us as the next generation. And one is when you juxtapose these 2 stories of Noah's family and Abraham's family. In Noah's family, his foundation of faith was to build the ark. And after the 40 days of the flood, you know, they landed on dry land. And the 2 sons, Shem and Ham, were meant to be in the Cain and Abel relationships, respectively. But what happens in this story, and I'm really like shortening this story because there's a point here, is that Ham essentially finds his father naked and is ashamed of him and goes and tells his brothers about him, and they all judge him, and they back up and they cover him because they're so ashamed of him. But the real story there is that Ham judged his father and didn't understand his heart and didn't have the capacity to unite with his father to say, you know what, my dad just did something incredible. He just saved our whole family. We would be dead without him. So he must know what he's doing. Instead of saying that, he judged him, and he, invited his brothers to do the same thing, to judge him and to step away from him. And so because of that, Ham wasn't able to inherit this Abel position, the foundation of faith, from his father, which is really quite a sad story. On the other hand, in Abraham's family, Abraham failed in his first foundation of faith, right? He didn't cut the dove. And what God asked him to do next is he asked him to take your beloved son, who you waited many years for, take him to the top of the mountain and sacrifice him to make up for your mistake. And so he does. He obeys God, and Isaac is walking up the mountain. There's a quote in the Bible where Isaac's like, hey, Dad, like, where's the thing that we're sacrificing? So Isaac starts to catch on that, there's something going on here, and maybe I'm the one who needs to be sacrificed. But instead of judging his dad or complaining his dad, he understands his heart and he unites with his father. And because of that, the angel can come and protect Isaac. And because of that, Isaac successfully inherits from his father and then has to walk his own course. But when you juxtapose these two stories, you see that the key ingredient here has to do with understanding the heart of the central figure. And that's what really, in my experience, the foundation of substance has to do with, is understanding the heart. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story about myself. I do work for UPF now. I've been working for UPF for about 1.5 years. But basically, for most of my life, I worked with youth. And that's what most of the story will dwell on. So this is me many years ago, leading one of the craziest workshops I ever led in my whole life. And basically, True Mother was coming to America, and we were asked to gather all of the young people to come to her rally. And I really struggle with those kinds of things. I don't totally get those kinds of things. And, you know, America is quite large. And so I, as the national youth leader at that time, had to ask all of these existing summer camps to forego their regular programming and drive across the country to New York to join True Mother for her rally. And I was struggling with this so much. But I united. This is what my central figure had asked me to do. And the other aspect of this, which was really difficult, I don't know if you guys had to do this in Europe, but did you all know the Muchokon dance? Do you know that dance? Okay, I see some nods and some smiles. Okay. I'm a dancer, a trained dancer, and I love dance, but I do not love Muchokon. And it was really hard. It was thrown at us, and it was one of those situations where this is what you have to do. This is the expectation. And so it was like so difficult for me. And it was hard because we had like 500 youth coming in, and the guy who came from Japan to teach us was really intense, very like militaristic dancing style. And, you know, like, you must do this. And my American heart was really just struggling so much. And yeah, we did it though. We learned the dance. Here's a picture of us performing at the rally, 500 of us. And we offered it, even through the struggle, even through the difficulty, but having the heart of, okay, this is important to my central figure. This is, you know, the heart behind that whole dance is the word got around, right? That Mother loves this song. And so this dance became kind of like a artistic offering for Mother, and I can get behind that. But it was difficult and it was really challenging. And, you know, America worked really hard to bring a great victory for Mother to speak to so many people. And it was really quite incredible, really a true victory. But what was really amazing is we had a workshop right beforehand to prepare all the young people. We had been asking every day to our continental leader, you know, can the young people have a meeting with Mother? Can it happen? And every day we heard, no, it's not going to happen. No, it's not going to happen. And the night before, very late at night, we got the word that we could go greet Mother at East Garden the next morning. So we got up like at 3 a.m. and drove several hours to greet her, waited a few more hours with no breakfast, kids were starving, and then finally Mother came. And we, of course, performed Muchokan again, but this was actually the first time most of these young people had seen Mother so up close and personal. And I could see how, even though this whole experience was very difficult for me, through my unity and through really trying to understand the heart of my central figure, that we could create this amazing miracle for my brothers and sisters. But, and look, Dr. Balcom was our president back then, so we have something in common. This was, I don't remember how many years ago, maybe like 5 years ago, more than that, I don't know. Soon after this, it changes though. It goes over to you guys. But literally after this program, I'm on the bus home, I text my central figure and I'm like, now Kimi, I am never doing this again. We did it, but please don't ever ask me to do this kind of thing again. But what happened is we did it again. Here's us doing the same dance in Las Vegas, welcoming Mother, gathering 10,000 people, doing the same workshop. And then we did it again. We did it in Los Angeles, welcoming True Mother. And we did it again, just like over and over again, this dance. Actually, this dance, we did the Tongil rock version of it. Thank goodness we could change the dance finally. But I struggled with this every time. But what also started to happen is I saw that the more we started making an offering that was kind of like closer to True Mother and really trying to understand True Mother's heart. And in all the workshops we did, preparing for these dances and preparing to welcome Mother, all of it was about cultivating this heart of understanding who true parents are and having a filial heart, a hyojong heart that naturally wants to express love and joy. And through that, I saw my own heart changing, because over and over, I'm trying to understand the heart of my central figure, and I catch myself growing. I catch myself overcoming things that used to really bother me in the past, and it's really beautiful. But I want to say that even though there's like these victorious stories, it's actually a very difficult process to establish a foundation of substance. And I have these pictures here because here's Mother. We were in Vegas and this was the victory celebration. Here's myself and Tasna and our president at the time, Damien. And right next to me is now Kimi. You can't see him, but there he is there. At this victory celebration, we had, we brought, I think at that time it was 400 youth to perform for Mother, and, great workshop, really understanding Mother's heart. But for whatever reason, this particular program, it was like our offering wasn't received at that time. We weren't recognized, we weren't appreciated. And actually in this victory celebration, both Tasna and I were crying. And now Kimi, was sitting next to us and reached over and like grabbed our shoulders, kind of recognizing like, I see that your offering isn't being accepted and I see that you're not feeling appreciated. And so he took us out to eat afterwards. And it was a very beautiful experience because his reflection was that as my central figure, he wasn't doing a good enough job to make a way for our offering to be received. And that was the first time I had seen a central figure of mine take that kind of responsibility, to be a true Abel, to see the pain of Cain having their offering not being accepted and taking responsibility for that. And it really changed my relationship with him. It changed my outlook on everything we were doing. And we as a team really transformed our approach to unite with Dr. Kim and with Damien and with True Mother at that time. And things started to explode after that, because we really started to think, okay, what's on the heart of our central figure? What really matters to them? How can we make an offering that is in line with what they're thinking about? And so what started to happen is at that time, after all these rallies in America, ACLC, the Clergy Foundation, became very strong and was basically the leading pulse of our American Providence. But there were no young people involved in that Providence. And, to be honest, most of the ACLC pastors are like 70. So there's a huge gap in age, right? And I really felt like we wanted to be a part of this. We wanted to be a part of this Providence, but it was like we couldn't find the space for us to get in there. And so we decided to launch YCLC. And, this is me reporting in front of all our American leaders. This is a picture of the first religious YCLC team. These two guys are Christian pastors. This is a young first gen. This is myself, where we agreed to launch YCLC. And, I didn't really run it by anybody. At that time, I was the director of youth and young adult ministry. And so I kind of had the permission to do as I pleased. Damien mostly supported it, but I made this report. And then our continental director, Dr. Ki-hoon Kim at that time, came up and tearfully thanked me, because he said he had been praying for this for 7 years, for a young person to take on this foundation of ACLC and pass it on to the next generation. And it hit me and it shocked me, and it shifted how I saw Dr. Kim. And all of a sudden, my heart started to open more to him and to understand what's his vision. These kinds of experiences, once my heart changed about these different central figures, where I really started to understand what's on their heart, then it's like my hopes, my dreams, my offerings could be so naturally expressed to them because I understood their heart. I wasn't trying to pull away from them. Instead, my offering was to like uplift and support them. And we soon after that, Mother came December 2019, and we did another dance. Here we are doing another dance because that's what we do. But more than that, what was really special is we did this launch of YCLC where we had 500 people. And for weeks ahead of time, we had local teams who were reaching out to Christian pastors and bringing them to really launch YCLC. And I was so proud of us. I mean, it was amazing to have Christian young clergy present, but more than that, I was so proud to introduce this providence to our generation in a way that was exciting and meaningful. And you could just like feel how meaningful it was. And this is what I was most proud about. And the next day, we went to a victory celebration with True Mother, which is pretty typical. And our team, our young leaders team, tried to get like a table up front, sitting in front to be close to Mother. But we were politely asked several times to keep moving back. And so we ended up sitting in the very back of the table of the room, which we were frustrated about, but we like put it aside and let go of our frustrations. But what was really amazing is in Mother's speech, she specifically, this is the last line of her speech, and she says, "I especially have hope because our second generation unificationists are taking the lead." And she was specifically talking about our group, our team, who had made this initiative out of the goodness of our heart. You know, nobody asked us to do it. Nobody told us to do it, but we understood Mother's heart. We understood the heart of our leadership. And so we created this space to make an offering, and it was like so received by Mother. We were the only people who were asked to stand up and acknowledged in that victory celebration. And even more so than that, this is Mother giving us $10,000. There's Damien, you know, pointing at us in the back room saying, "That's all you guys did it." And, you know, I could give all that money out to all the camps that had come and things like that. And to me, this is like the most beautiful story of the struggle of uniting and making a substantial victory in the foundation of substance. It's not easy, it's messy, but the key ingredient is really understanding the heart of your central figure. And if you can do that, if you can genuinely do that, if you can meditate on the people in your lives, you know, whether it's your parents, whether it's your pastor, whether it's your spouse, whoever it is, if you can really develop this artistic relationship with the people in your life and understand their heart first and foremost, then you are going to be able to navigate these relationships and create true harmony. So you got to think about, like, in all these stories of the foundation of substance failing, for Moses, for instance, right? How different would it have been if Moses had really built strong artistic relationships with the Israelites? How different would have been when he killed, you know, one of the slave masters? If he had had those relationships with the Israelites and they could have backed him up, would he have had to leave, you know, for 40 years into the wilderness and then come back to get them? It could be so different. You know, I don't know what would really happen, but my point is that it's all about relationships. If you have these artistic relationships, then the people will gather and the people will trust. And that's been my experience. You know, working with President Dunkley was really a blessing for me. And working with Dr. Kim was really a blessing for me, because although I didn't really like them or get along with them in the beginning, I really sought to try to understand their heart. And through that, I really could feel Mother's love. I could feel Mother's presence because of my unity with them. So the key point is, how do you unite with your central figure? This is what I want you to take away, if you're taking away anything, is understanding their heart. And if you don't want to look at the central figure angle, I think the same is true in any of our relationships here, is understanding the heart. At first, I made you guys a long list. Then I realized the most important thing is this, is understanding their heart, becoming one in heart with them. And then naturally you can express that to others. So what I want to end with here is, you know, that was a great victory, and great things were happening. I became the director of youth and young adult ministry, and I was really proud of the great work that we were doing and really inspired about that. And then Mother made all these leadership changes for America. And so we got a new regional director, Dr. Chong-Shik Yong, and change, my wording here is change is hard, and it is. And soon after he came, he assigned me to work for UPF. And, you know, I'll be honest that UPF is is like the furthest thing from me in terms of like interest and passion, and kind of like shocking for, I think, most people that I would be assigned to something like this. And I struggled with it a lot, right? But I did have some spiritual experiences that pushed both my husband and I to make this big leap and accept it. And main reason being is that Dr. Yong told us that Mother really wanted a young person at UPF to inherit, because my whole team is over 70. And so there's a huge foundation in UPF that's going to be lost in a few years if there aren't young people immediately ready to inherit it. So you can imagine all these pictures with young people. That's usually my team. This is my new team. This guy is my father-in-law, actually, but he's hilarious and we get along really well. So he's my buddy. This is my central figure, Dr. Jenkins. You probably heard his name. And it's a really different culture, you guys, really different culture. And it has not been easy. And Dr. Jenkins knows that. Even, you know, my style is very different. They've never really worked with a second generation before. And I think it's been a big learning experience. A lot of my work has been upgrading technology and to increase our improve our flyers and make new websites and make things, you know, work a little bit better. It's not easy to make change and growth happen, right? But for the first year or so, I think I really battled with Dr. Jenkins. I pushed a lot, and I did many conditions. You know, I prayed. My husband and I set many Hundake conditions together to really, the key phrase being understand Dr. Jenkins' heart. And it took a long time, but what I understand about him now is that he's really a warrior for true parents. And what he needs from someone like me is really just someone to support him, to do the things that he can't do, to see ahead for the things that are coming and support him. And so I really had to change my approach. I'm used to big ideas and following my dreams and all of that, but I had to shift to understand the heart of my central figure and be able to make that unity. And, you know, I have now. It's not easy still. It's a work in progress. But making that unity is key. The key point is to understand the heart of your central figure. And so I get to do stuff like this, where these are, you know, U.S. national congressmen from different states. And, you know, it's not always this exciting. It's a lot of like writing letters and people not returning your calls and stuff like that. But at the same time, you've seen it, right? You've seen them on Rallies of Hope, the people that we're able to reach, the people we're able to bring closer to True Mother is very substantial. And so because of that, I can, you know, motivate myself and push myself through the struggles that are happening in my relationships. So key point, please remember this is the key to having unity with your central figure and substantiating the foundation of substance is about heart. And it's not about just doing what you're told. That's not enough. It has to be about this relationship of heart. And you have to be the one to initiate it. A lot of times our central figures are imperfect. A lot of them are still growing in their own life. And you can see that sometimes. Maybe that's very obvious to you. Maybe it's not. Maybe you have great central figures. But it's your job when you're in this role of establishing a foundation of substance with others is to understand their heart, is to try to make unity. You know, think about if Cain could have done that with Abel. Cain saw Abel's faults. Abel, father says, is very arrogant and really hurt Cain. And that relationship is very complicated. But what if Cain could have seen, okay, I see that Abel has his limitations, but what does Abel need from me, right? What can I do to support Abel? What if Cain could have approached the relationship like that? The end result would have been very different. And the last thing I want to mention here is Bogdan was talking about several conditions, and this is not a commercial, but the most valuable thing I have found in the last year of my life is reading Mother's speeches, her current speeches, her ones from the last year. And there is something so tangible when you're reading Mother's speeches and like really studying it. You start to tap into this vibration. It's a frequency that comes from heaven and the providence, and you can get energy from it. You can see beyond the imperfections of our church movement, and you can see where we're heading. And so I really want to suggest that you get your hands on some of Mother's recent speeches. I started a women's small group recently studying Mother's speeches, and it was so transformational for us that I turned it into a podcast, because I realized most people are not studying Mother's speeches. And because of that, they don't see what's happening. They don't see where we're heading. They don't feel what's on Mother's heart and mind. And when I'm struggling in my mission, when I'm not sure what to do, and when I'm feeling kind of like lost and hopeless and frustrated, the thing that I count on the most is Mother. And because of that, you know, I've had many dreams about True Mother. I've had many experiences with Mother that have seen me through very dark times. So I want to keep that as an umbrella to everything I've talked about, that, you know, work through these foundations of substance, build substance in your life of faith, but let it be centered on the bigger picture, because without that, you know, you're not really going to see the miracles that are happening all around us. So I will end there. Sorry if I went over a few minutes, but I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you so much, Kaeleigh. That was really interesting to hear your practical experiences, and also, explaining the foundation of substance through that. So we're going to be hearing a bit more from you, and also from Bogdan. So we're going to have questions and answers. So any questions and comments that you have written, we're going to be have answered by the speakers. Okay, so the first question is, did you ever have a downhill in your spiritual life? What did you do to overcome it and make your spiritual life stronger? So either of our speakers can answer that. Maybe Kaeleigh, do you want to go first?
Sure. The answer is yes, absolutely, all the time. But I think what I will share maybe as an example is a few years ago, I think I experienced something that really shook me up in our church. And I kind of went into this very difficult place where I felt like I had to decide how serious I was about, you know, my future involvement. And I set many prayer conditions and many tearful conversations. But two things helped me get through that. And one is echoing what I said earlier, is True Mother's recent speeches. Because I feel Mother brings this very motherly expression of God, which I think we as a movement have been missing a lot, making space for, you know, really building families with a healthy culture, and to make your offering in your unique way, and this motherly love that comes from God. That kept me going. But the other thing is, I have a group of sisters, 3 sisters, who I call them my sisterhood. And I regularly check in with them and ask them to pray for me. And at first that was very hard for me to do, but when that situation occurred, I pulled them together, and, you know, for a week, every day, they were on the phone with me, praying and talking with me. And I really feel it was their spiritual energy that helped me get out of a very difficult situation. So, you know, there's an example of like the foundation of faith, right? Really relating with Mother's words, but also having this support group in my life of faith that could carry me through when I needed help. And it's okay to need help and ask for help sometimes.
Thanks for this practical advice. Bogdan, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I think my experience was clearly my wife saved me most of the times in that relationship. Usually either by understanding or sometimes by scolding. So she finds the right the right balance between those 2 points, how to get that. But that's actually really an amazing thing. If you can receive scolding well, I feel that saved me several times, either in dreams from Father or in real life from my wife. So that was Yoshiko. This was that was what worked for me. I think in a sense it's good to even, to ever have it downhill in your spiritual life. Anyway, I feel in a sense when I'm realizing, I think it's best if we go downhill voluntarily in my life, in my experience. So that can avoid a lot of pain. So in that sense, for me, the safest place is in a sense the kitchen and doing the dishes there, because there I feel spiritually the most grounded and safe in a sense. So sometimes if you feel it's going downhill, maybe it's good to actually advance the process and really go to a deep place and do something that's very difficult for yourself. That's maybe that's an advice, to not fight it, but go down in a sense by putting yourself in.
Thanks. It's interesting that even though we're talking about life of faith, that both of you mentioned that this kind of relational aspect and interacting with other people, and the importance of companions of faith in our own life of faith. Just interesting you both mentioned that. Okay, the next question is for Bogdan. You mentioned doing conditions. Why is it important to share or report to your able figure?
It's important that the offering we make, and Kaeleigh gave a great example for that, to be accepted, right? And sometimes we think, okay, that is exactly what I need to do. That's the condition I would like to offer to connect me to God. But my able figure might see, is this really what you read? Do you need to isolate yourself more? Or do you need to spend more time with other people? It depends on the situation, right? It's to have this other check of another person to see and check on you and feel out, is this really what you need? And so I report my conditions to Dr. Bogdan, and he usually sends a thumb or something like that. But I already had the experiences of really him correcting me and saying, no, that's not really what's important right now. Don't go down so that self-righteous path of spirituality where you seek your enlightenment out of yourself and out of your great efforts. It's always grace from God. And in a sense, our central figure helps us to helps with that. So because also our spiritual effort, our conditions can become an idol that separates us from God. So, and the relationship with the central figure helps us to put us in the right place. And as you will eventually, as we guide other people, you realize that actually sometimes, there is this dagger of resentment in our offering, or this is dagger of, in the fruit basket that we offer spiritually, there is some pain, some resentment in there. And the relationship with our central figure helps us to make the offering pure. Take that resentment, that self-righteousness, this sort of thing out, tell it to our central figure, and through them offer it up. That's why it's important. It saves us from spiritual pride. Yeah.
Thanks, Bogdan, for answering that question. The next one is for Kaeleigh. Where do you draw the line of what you think you can offer to the providence and doing that versus following the central figure's directions?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there's no line to be drawn, but what I have learned is that the more that I can artistically relate with my central figure and understand their hopes and understand them as people, right? And really develop this kind of love for them. then I find a way for the things that I am inspired about to be received. If I come at my central figures with the idea of this is my solution, I'm going to fix all the problems, and you don't know, I know better than you, right? If I come out swinging like that, then my central figure's response is going to be to block it, right? If I'm swinging at them. But if I come at my central figure with a warm hug, with my arms open, saying, here's my offering, receive it. And if we need to adjust it, we can adjust it, then it's much more easily received. And I saw that, like, I don't know what Europe's experience was, but growing up in America, our Korean leader, our continental leader, was not usually the one that you were excited to work with. That was kind of my experience with Dr. Kim at first, as I had this kind of concept of him. But as I started to relate with him more and understand his heart more, before it was like, when I would make a report to him, I felt like he didn't care, or he didn't even know my name, or, whatever stuff was coming up for me. But once I started to understand his heart more, all of a sudden, he paid more attention to me. It's not like I changed my offering at all, but I changed my heart towards him, and he could sense that. And so the point is I think the more that we develop this heartistic relationship of unity, then actually everything that is on our heart that we want to accomplish is going to be naturally received. The other thing I want to mention practically is, for instance, with UPF, I don't have like a passion for political work. It's not in my bones, but it's my job. So I have to do it. I have to unite with my central figure. I have to do it with joy. But I've also learned that it's okay to make space in my life to make other offerings that aren't directly related to whatever mission I'm involved in. And, the podcast I mentioned is an example of that. And I'm working on a few other projects that are meaningful for me and for my family and for my group of friends and things like that. It's not going against my central figure. I'm still doing what my central figure asks me to do, but I'm also making space for what God is personally calling me to do in my life. And so I don't think it's a choice. I think you can do all of the above as long as you're fulfilling, what it is your central figure is asking of you.
Thanks, Kaeleigh, for that. I think we have time for one more question and trying to squeeze it in. Do you have some suggestions of how we can understand our central figure's heart? Maybe for you, Kaeleigh.
Sure, I'm sure Bogdan has some points too, but I'll keep it brief. I literally, maybe meditate is the right word. I do a lot of walks in my life of faith. So late at night when my kids are asleep, I walk up and down my street, listen to good music, and I'm asking God, I say out loud, God, what's on this person's heart? Help me understand their heart. And I'm asking this question over and over again, very sincerely, and I'm trying to be open. And if I do that for a few days and my heart is sincere, I get some kind of insight, or I see my central figure different. Or the really cool thing that happens is your central figure shifts. All of a sudden, they talk to you different. Like when I started doing that with Dr. Jenkins, he used to scold me a lot. But when I started to really understand his heart and pray about it, he started to acknowledge me in all these meetings about, how great I am. And I'm like, well, like my offering hasn't changed, but my heart has changed. So I think praying and really asking for God's insight, meditating on them, visualizing them, it's all a spiritual practice to get that kind of answer.
Bogdan, do you quickly want to add something?
Yeah, for me, writing situations down and describing them helps a lot. And I describe what I feel, I describe what the other person is doing, and that helps me to understand deeply. That's one practice that can add to what the valuable things that Kaeleigh said.
Thank you so much, Bogdan and Kaeleigh, for your answers. I'm sure that I think there would have been more questions as well, but we have to move on. It's been really interesting to hear from both of you and your practical experiences, also offering your time for our movement. So thank you so much for sharing. So now, everyone, we're going to move forward, and we're going to have a half-an-hour team meeting. We have some questions up on the screen that you can discuss during your team meetings, or you can also discuss other interesting points that came to your mind. So some of the questions you could address is, after listening to today's talks, what's one way you could improve your life of faith? Describe a time in your life when you chose faith. Have you ever struggled with a central figure and overcome it? How did you do it? So please also change your name so that your team number is visible in case you haven't done that. And yeah, let's meet again in half an hour and enjoy your discussions. All right, welcome back, everyone. Hope you had a good and yeah, interesting team meetings. So next we're going to go through the announcements. So of course, we're all looking forward to the homework. So this is due next week, Friday, and it is to write down an internal and external goal that you'd like to achieve by the end of the year. Then print it out and stick it up on your accountability mirror and share it in your team if you like. So accountability mirror is just somewhere where you see it, where you're sure that you're not going to forget it. So it could be your diary or your desk or wherever. Then the third one is to talk to your able figure about your goal and discuss with them a condition you can do to support it. So as we heard just in the previous talks and question and answer, there's some value in sharing that goal with someone to help you keep you accountable, as well as to just get an external perspective as well. So this homework is also in your booklet or available. Maybe you can take a screenshot as well if you want. Okay, so that's the homework for next week. We also have still some interview spots left. So this is for everyone who has not yet done an interview with the staff. Please follow the link which is shown in the chat and reserve a time for yourself. So this is all the participants. We just want to have a quick chat with you. If you haven't done this yet with any staff member, please follow the link and choose a time that's convenient to you. The times shown in this schedule are in CET, so just remember to adjust that to your own time zone and you'll get an email from the staff confirming that. Okay, then we're introducing a new Google Classroom. This is meant for all the participants of this foundation course. It was originally created especially for those who are participating offline and in their own time. So there are also, of course, people who can't make these sessions for whatever reasons. And so this is a forum where you will find all the different materials, but it's also where you can interact as well. You can ask questions and comments. And so that's for the offline participants to provide them for a way to participate, but it's as much for the online participants as well. So you can engage in discussions and ask questions if you have anything during the week. You'll find there the homework, you'll find different things, the booklet and the schedule. So please follow the link and yeah, and have a look at what's there. You'll also be able to submit your homework there as well. In a way that other people can see it. Can everyone mute themselves, please? Thank you. Okay, and then another reminder at the daily 100K. This is every morning at 6:30 CET. You can also do 100K in your own time, but of course it's so much greater, as we heard today, to have companions of faith. We can share together and also hear from others what they have to say. So yeah, please come and see you there. It will be very nice. Next session is a bit of a different one. It's a carp talk. So you may or may not be familiar with some sessions that have been organized previously around carp, or that carp in Europe has been organizing. There's some online sessions. So actually the next foundations course is going to be combined together with this carp session. So that means that this is actually open for anyone. This is not just for the foundations participants, it's also for the foundations participants, but it's also open for anyone else. So you can actually bring your friend from outside the movement or inside But yeah, it's open to everyone. And also, of course, the talk is such that it's going to be relatable to anyone. The talk is going to be on the topic of connecting my goals to the higher vision. It's by Raphael Guignard. That's going to be next Tuesday. So also, please, each team, bring at least one guest. So that means a person who is not, hasn't grown up in the unification movement. Yeah, please bring them here and share with them. It's a great opportunity to bring guests or your friends to some event which is relatable and yeah, which is kind of good internal guidance, relatable to anyone. So yeah, so we're also setting this extra homework or challenge for each team to bring at least one person. So yeah, that brings us to the conclusion of our meeting today. We're going to have a team leaders meeting afterwards, so please stay on for that. Bogdan, you look like you want to say something. Did you want to say anything at this point? No? Okay. All right, so
Happy to see you.
Yeah, well, you just look too happy, so I was like, well, I'm sure that like I missed something and you're just smiling because you're like, please let me say something. Okay, well, thank you everybody so much for attending today. It's been so nice to see you again today and to see your faces, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next Tuesday, and have a nice weekend. I'm just going to pray first before I forget that. Okay, Heavenly Parent, today we had another session of the Foundations course, session number 3. I pray, Heavenly Parent, that you can guide all the participants in their weekend, and I pray that you can show yourself to all of us and that you can guide us in the way that we need it. We thank you so much for the different speakers that have been able to share with us. We pray that you can bless them also and bless their families. And yeah, thank you that we have older brothers and sisters to share with us about their experiences and their path, which is really interesting also for us to learn from. So yeah, thank you for everything, and pray for all of the brothers and sisters that are here today and their families, and the offline participants as well. This I pray in my name. All of our names are Jew. Okay, so thank you. Good night, everyone. And team leaders, please stay on. Have a nice evening. And see you tomorrow at 100K.